Well, we could hear, and we're live. Another show, Rolland Market Mashup. It's October 8th.
Hello?
Yeah, Bob, we're good here.
Hello?
Yeah.
Bob's going to have to figure that out. Dad, I'm sure you could hear us, but we removed you from the stream until you can get your volume figured out because we're live here and people could hear us. And yesterday was quite the rally, basically. Just to kind of recap the last 48 hours, towards the end of the day on Tuesday, Trump tweeted that it looked like there wasn't going to be a stimulus deal, and the market dropped a quick 350 to 400 points. Nothing too crazy, but obviously it slowed down the rally. And then, shortly after, Trump started tweeting up a storm again. And yesterday, as really early in the morning, it looked like the deal was potentially back on the table. And the market rallied pretty aggressively again. And it looks like it's going to continue that rally today. And it feels like the bulls are just fully in control here. Dad, is your volume working? You with us now? Maybe not.
I'm having internet issues.
Yeah, so that's kind of what the last 24 or 48 hours, I should say, has brought us. And again, the futures are pointing to another higher open today. The initial jobless claim just came out. It was down 9,000 to 840,000. I don't know what people are expecting on this, but it doesn't really seem like it's having much of an impact on the futures. They seem to just be holding strong. So, a bunch of upgrades and downgrades this morning, and just news in general. Dad, are you with us now? Can you hear us? No. All right. Well, a few of the stocks yesterday that we talked about on the show yesterday, or that we talked about on the show a lot, but really had some moves yesterday. First off, Bob's been talking about X, which is U.S. Steel, for a while. That stock exploded yesterday. It was up like 10%. Same with Plug Power. Both those stocks were just on fire. Netflix got an upgrade to a street high of 650, and that stock broke above 530 yesterday. It was really just action after action. And then, Mike, this morning, I know you've been big on Roku. They just got an upgrade, and they're up over $8 this morning, which is up almost 4% off of increased number of streaming-only homes, which completely is in line with what your thesis has been with these, Airbnb, just those types of homes, less cable, more Roku. So,
yeah, I think it allows people to just stay more fluid without being anchored.
Yeah, so that stock is clearly on fire. And
Domino's.
Domino's is down. They missed on profits for their quarter, but they did beat on revenue. Curious to hear your guys' thoughts on that.
I think it's a good buying opportunity for them. I don't see, I see them being down, and all I see is they have been crushing the pandemic. And I don't really see what the downside is they're buying on a dip for a Domino's. They're not going anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, look, they missed profits by 30 cents per, and it's not that bad. I think the more important thing for me, if I'm a shareholder of Domino's, is seeing if they continue to beat the revenue forecasts, which show that they continue to grow. Their same-store sales increased 17.5%. Estimates had it at 13.9%. So, yeah, I'm kind of with you on that. I wouldn't be surprised if you see that stock start to rally in the afternoon. And then IBM, they are on the radar this morning because they announced that they're going to spin off the managed infrastructure service of its global technology unit. And because of that, they're up big this morning, up over $12, which is up over 10%. So that'll be an interesting thing to watch. Eaton Vance. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right because I've never heard of them, but I believe I am. The ticker's EV. They just agreed to be acquired by Morgan Stanley for $56.60 per share in cash and stock. So I think they're a similar type of company as E-Trade, and as we know, Morgan Stanley just acquired E-Trade. So that's on the radar this morning. I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right, but that makeup company that the Jenner was involved in, Kylie Jenner, Cody, ticker COTY. But they're popping this morning on news that they're just expanding the makeup line with Kylie, and they're going to be launching in UK, France, Germany, and Australia. Wouldn't shock me if you see this move kind of retrace itself, just because this isn't really that big of news. And Regeneron, which we know is the treatment cocktail drug that brought Trump back to life and has him feeling the best he's felt in 20 years, they applied for emergency use authorization of their antibody cocktail, which is the same thing that Trump was treated with. So,
And Trump reopened the stimulus talks. That's why the market's up this morning.
well, yeah, and that kind of started yesterday in the morning when he tweeted directly at Pelosi, basically saying he was ready to sign off on the $1,200 thing. Obviously, the airline thing is still in play. It's obvious there's a lot of people that want to make something happen. And then I think, and this is something Dad's been saying this whole time, I think people kind of know that, right around the corner we have the election. And once that's behind us, it's going to be infrastructure, stimulus, all kinds of spending going on. So even if the stimulus deal doesn't get done in the next few weeks, the election's about to happen. And then all this nonsense is behind us, nonsense as far as, the political games that are preventing the stimulus from actually happening. And then the market can kind of sit back and see what that's going to lead to. And I think that's why Dad's been big on X, which is U.S. Steel, and why they probably got such a look yesterday. And, last night, did you guys tune into the vice presidential debate at all?
Yep.
Yeah, and again, I think the takeaway from that is it's obvious that they're both big on more infrastructure spending once the election's over. You hear them talking about, roads, buildings, things that would cause a stock like U.S. Steel to continue to go up. And then the other thing is you hear them not actually go after Wall Street or big banks or the big pharma companies or anything of that. And I think that's why the market is continuing, in my opinion, to just rep higher. Is there's not this fear that one of the candidates is trying to ultimately bring down Wall Street. So, yeah, we could hear you. The problem is you can't hear us. So I recommend logging off and on. But, yeah, and the only other thing on my radar, actually there's a lot of things, but the other thing I'll bring up is AMC, the movie theater company. They announced they're going to have over 550 of their locations opened within, I think, by the end of the month. And that's
I think they're in deep trouble. I think it just helps Netflix more. I don't see people jumping at going out to movie theaters, especially during this time of year. I don't really get their move there. I think they should be doing way more with their parking lots with drive-through movies.
Yeah, I think they're just thinking ahead to when this pandemic's over. And I think, movie theaters were continuing to enhance the experience. They started doing the 3D glasses. I was never really a fan of that, but it seemed like it was getting a lot of traction. I think people enjoy going out and having experiences, and I think movie theaters fall into that. So I don't think they're going to cease to exist. I think
they're going to have to change up their model. I don't see movie theaters being what they used to. I think people love going out, but not in that fashion anymore.
Yeah, look, it'll be interesting. And then,
the future of augmented and virtual reality, I think, hurts a place like that. They're going to, even when you look at their rent expenses, and they're going to have to change up what they're doing. Like we always joke about how much popcorn is expensive. They don't have a choice. That's why they charge what they do for it. So that's part of the problem is the real estate there for AMC.
Yeah. The other thing, I haven't looked at the marijuana stocks, but that was something that was brought up in the debate last night, and something where if the Biden ticket wins, they'd immediately decriminalize weed across the country. So I wonder if those stocks are going to get a look this morning. It seems like everything is getting a look this morning. It's just one of those days. Let me see, Mike, what's the Canopy ticker?
CGC.
What is it?
CGC. The Canopy growth you're talking about?
Yeah, I just kind of want to type it.
Yeah, they haven't been doing anything since I sold it a while ago. And I got out of that in the 17 range. It's been
They're up a little bit this morning, but I think people already know that the Democrats are planning on legalizing weed if they get in the office. So it's not like going to give weed stocks a pop just because
Well,
they.
it'll give them a pop if Biden actually wins. I think that's going to, until that actually happens, it's going to be tough to see that.
Yeah, and then Beyond Meat continues to just be a beast. It looks like it might just rush right through 200, and then Beyond Meat it starts to get interesting because when you look at the lifelong chart, obviously they got as high as Bob. What is going on with you over there?
He doesn't. Bob's not an internet guy.
Yeah, he's typing up a storm. He's not hearing us. We can see him though, so that's great. Beyond Meat got up to, I think the high was 239.71 back in 2019, and that was hardly for any time at all. So
I
it's
mean,
kind
yeah,
of
you guys, you know the deal with Beyond Meat. This is a rocket ship that's going to just keep going up. So for our viewers, I've been big on it. Get in on it and just, like Dan said yesterday, you don't need to start a big position. It's obviously not a cheap stock by any means, but if you believe in alternative meat, then get in on this. They're the brand leader.
yeah. And then I also, speaking of Beyond Meat, not that it's a complete synergy related stock, but Costco also reported great quarter. I mean, we've been talking about them since the show started.
Yeah.
And it's a slow mover, but not that slow. I mean, when we first started talking about them, the stock was at 300. Now it's at 364. It just kind of keeps ticking up. They clearly have their hands wrapped around this pandemic. They're doing things that make people feel comfortable. And at the end of the day, as the pandemic continues and more small businesses get destroyed, places like Costco, Target, Walmart, they are going to continue to dominate as there's just less small business competition. It's the unfortunate reality of the situation that we're in.
That's how the world works.
It really is. And yeah,
No
Ford,
better.
That is better.
Can't hear.
Bob's out. He shouldn't.
Then,
Jersey Bob doesn't work today.
I'll tell you, if the market's going to actually have a strong day today, which you never quite know because the market's definitely been super volatile, but it seems like Ford, I could see that stock hitting 750 today. That stock's clearly acting well. There's a lot of people that are starting to talk about it, and it seems like their competitors keep getting brought up in the news, but not Ford. And I think there's a lot of value investors that are starting to look at Ford, and I'm happy I own it. I think it's been acting great. Clearly, 650, some sort of level of support. It's bounced off that several times. And
let's see it go up to 10.
Well, I think if it gets through like that 750 level, it's kind of done with this current chop fest that it's been in really all summer long, and maybe it could at least get like into the 8s, into the 9s. So, Mike, give me the ticker for your mushroom company again.
Well, the one Dad got me in was CMPS, which had a nice move yesterday. That's the Peter Thiel-backed company that's based in the UK. And then MMEDF is my one that I've been big on, that the Mr. Wonderful stock that is, again, it's up pre-market. It was up huge yesterday, up over 23%. I mean, this is, again, we talk about getting ahead of narratives. If you think mental health and psychedelics go hand in hand, if you believe in that, then those two stocks are good anchors to dabble with. I'm in both of them.
Yeah, like we never really talk about penny stocks on this show. I don't own any penny stocks, but I wonder, and I don't think anything really changes, but what happens when it crosses that dollar point? Is that like a major resistance level because it just, goes from being a penny stock to a dollar stock? That's why when I was looking at it yesterday, I'm like, yeah, I should probably have some just to.
Well, this stock, was back at $10 in 2017.
Yeah, was it really?
Yep. Dan's getting that FOMO effect right now in his head. Like, I can't be missing this thing going over $1. I'm seeing it now.
It's one of those things. I haven't really felt the FOMO effect on this only because I know that you hardly own any. when you're like, I'm up 100% on this stock.
I mean, hardly own any. I own 5,000 shares. I'm up over $2,000 on a stock that I invested $1,000 in.
No, I know
No,
it's great, but like
you
if
know,
I were to buy any of the stock, I'd probably also only own like $1,200 worth, and it'd be one of those things where I don't know. I would never buy an amount where it's going to matter if this thing's up 80% in a day or down 60.
well, that's part of the problem. You have to get rich on this. You have to back in Amazon in 2000, where it's like, oh, I'm going hard on Bezos.
I'm not trying to get rich on any specific stock and throw my
that's where I am, Dan. I want to be retired off of predicting the future and just being like, I got this.
I know, but I mean,
it's hard though to have that type of conviction on a penny stock because it's still very risky.
Yeah, it's easier to have that type of conviction on a company that's like already crushing it to continue.
Yeah, like Facebook.
Yeah, or even like an Apple or an Amazon. It's not crazy to think.
But once they're already moving, that's a different, that's the thing. They used to be an MMEDF and Amazon. At one point, they were nothing.
Yeah, well, that's a good point. I guess the other thing that you got to think about when you're looking at like an MMEDF or any of these companies is if they start to gain any traction at all, they'll get a really nice acquisition from like one of the big drug companies.
Big time, man. There's going to be consolidation in that space. And Mr. Wonderful, that guy is no schmuck. That's why it's good being attached to his name.
Yeah, no, I mean, I definitely like that. That like behind closed doors, he's working it.
Yep.
I also wonder if he's a user.
I'm sure he is. He wouldn't be involved in that otherwise.
I wish we can get Dad's take right now on this Coty chart, which is the Jenner makeup company, because ever since they announced that news, the stock, went up and then it just came right back down. And now in October, it's actually been going well. Yeah, this thing just looks like it's on its way down to zero.
Yeah, I wouldn't touch it. I don't know. I've never even, I know nothing about that. Coty?
COTY. And then, let's see, we got
certain tickers just scream out at me. That is not one of them.
Yeah, no, I feel you.
Hasn't really looked good on the charts. Well, it's starting to act better.
Oh, look at this. DraftKings got a target raise to 60 from 39. I mean, so this stock has obviously been going through the offering the last few days. That's why it's come down so much. Yesterday, though, it got down to 51.80 at one point, and then probably burned through all those 52 offering shares. So the stock.
I'm still waiting to get back in this.
Part of me wonders if we might have. I mean, no. You got to think at some point the stock touches the 40s again. But now I'm like starting to think about how long it took for that stock to eventually break through those mid 40 levels. It like kept testing, it kept getting rejected. And now I'm like, oh, well, once it goes back into like the high 40s, I'll get in. Maybe 51.80 was a good level there because you look at where it's at now, it's already back up to 54.25. The biggest thing with DraftKings is I'm not ruling out the NFL getting canceled. I saw yesterday that there was another Patriots player that tested positive more times. I think there was an Oakland Raider little breakout. I think we're getting close to the COVID kind of shutting down.
Not to mention the ratings have been down like crazy since. People have been tuning out more and more to all this stuff. So I am not bullish on DraftKings at all right now.
That's why it's crazy to me that DraftKings and Penn are still holding up the way they are because
they're overbought.
Yeah, but the fact that, like you just said, the ratings have gone way down, it seems like that's kind of like a public known thing.
Yeah, that's why I'm personally not seeing how I could jump on either of these stocks here. I'm not expecting pullback.
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely scary levels to.
And maybe I'm wrong, but I just am not. My gut tells me those are not stocks to be in at the moment.
No, I totally agree. I don't own Penn or DraftKings, and for a while I've been just feeling like I've been missing out. But now it's just too. It's like, how do you even really attack these valuations and feel like you're getting in at a level that can't see such a big drop off? It's not like, I don't know, like you could almost make way more sense of the huge big cap tech names that have high valuations, but not like I'll go back to DraftKings is like over. I think it was like a 1,600 PE at one point. I mean, it's one of the most highly valued stocks.
See, I'd rather own a Beyond Meat right now than a DraftKings, just off of like why you could justify the actual valuation way more. With DraftKings and Penn, it just seems like a bunch of hot air off like a lot of people being pumped of what ifs down the road.
Yeah, I'll tell you another stock that's been kind of, I don't want to say moving with Beyond Meat because they're at different price levels, but they're both just in explosive mode right now. Peloton. I know we've talked about them a lot on here, and I've been saying that, in my opinion, it's way overvalued. I've thought this, clearly I'm just wrong because I thought this when it was at like $50, and now it's at $119. So, but a lot of these charts are starting to look like they're getting back to where they were when we saw that big tech sell-off, not the big cap names. I mean, don't get me wrong. When you look at Amazon, Microsoft, Google, these stocks haven't played as heavily in this rally. But, I mean, you look at a Peloton right now, and Mike, I know we are big – hold on a second. We like to look at the RSI. I like to look at it more so as like a long-term tool, not a day trading
Yeah, and
tool.
I like the year RSI more than anything. That's really been my indicator.
Yeah, so when you look at Peloton, it's in that no man's land where it's got an RSI of like 80.
And for our viewers, we brought this up. RSI is relative strength indicator, and Dan has been big on getting me in that a while ago. The bottom line is if you're not in a stock and you're looking to get in it, I always go off a 1 year RSI, and if it's ever north of 75, I'm waiting to get in that. And I'm not saying it can't go up more, and we've seen it go over 80 and stay over 80 for a while, but be careful of getting an entry point when a stock is getting close to that 80 range, because your upside is not that much short term, because there's going to be a pullback. And sure, you could see a stock continue to go up and push the bar on that for a while, as we've seen with NVIDIA for a while, with Penn, a few of these. But be careful. And on the other end, if it gets below that 30 range, it's a great opportunity for you to scoop some up for a value where it's been beaten down a bit too much. So that's kind of how I like going over it. And usually I'll see a stock's really acting strong where it's hovering around that like 68, 70 RSI, and the stock keeps moving up and the RSI stays around the same, which we've seen a lot of with Zillow and Beyond lately, where you could just see there's more room to run.
Yeah, and you could also kind of sometimes look at the negative divergence when basically the RSI starts to go down, but the stock is still ticking higher. And that usually means that the sell-off is almost near. But like Mike said, a lot of the times you can almost do the opposite and look at it like when an RSI is above 70, there's so much strength in the name that a lot of the times once it gets above 70, you'll see it stay above 70 for over a month. And
70 is the happy point. I think once it's over 75, if you're not already in that stock, it's tread carefully.
Yeah, it's definitely dangerous levels to get in. And that's where, Peloton is right now. Penn and DraftKings were. That's where they've both come down a lot. But then you obviously risk like the big flush out sale. Like right now, they're both just sitting at RSIs of like 50. Which,
they're candidates though of a flush out sale. If we have a bad couple market days, those guys are, coming down hard.
Well, yeah, I mean, their biggest risk right now is the NFL canceling. That would,
and the fact we're even talking about that as a risk possibly is why that's tough to just be gung-ho about right now. Betting on the virus, just keeping things running smoothly in cold weather, when clearly it's impossible to even know. These NFL teams are doing as much as they could, and when there are still outbreaks here and there, you just wonder, like, all right, so what's going on here?
Yeah, no, for sure. Man, Plug is just such a beast. It's crazy that we used to talk about this stock and trade it when it was like back and forth between 390 and like 20.
Could have retired holding on to Plug and Fiverr.
Yeah, well, that's kind of what I think is an interesting thing for us to just sit back and realize is some of the names that we've been kind of early on. A lot of the times when we think their time is up, it's really just the beginning.
Well, I noticed with Bob, that's one of his things. He definitely has some conviction on great stocks and likes getting out of them sometimes. Just out of, taking profits, which I get, but then not really thinking about the narrative of the whole era we're in. Where Plug's one of those.
No, 100%. Even like when you really think about, Dad's friend who got us in the Plug, who's a beast and randomly throws a name. I was thinking about this the other day. I remember when like Plug got to like 550, and Dad was like, "Yeah, he's all out." Like at this point, he looks at it like they're overvalued, and that guy's probably looking at it in such a like real way, like how it should be looked at. But the reality of the situation is that's just not the times we're in. Like if that guy is saying a stock is now overvalued at 530, we should have been like, okay, this thing's just getting started.
That's the case with cyclical stocks that are actually, concrete roadmaps, not stocks that are in an industry that are just blowing the floodgates open, which hydrogen sells. When you look at what Plug's doing, that's a very powerful narrative, like we talked about with Zillow and Beyond, and possibly a Penn and DraftKings.
Yeah, I mean, look, Beyond could be one of those hold for 10 years and see a 10x on it.
I have Conch to thank for Beyond. He's the one who first got me into that.
But then, like, if you really do the math, then if that's what you think, where Beyond Meat over the course of, like, let's call it 20 years is going to go up 10x from here, you park X amount of shares in it and you don't touch it for 10 years. And the gains you get off I mean, you could do the math. It's 10x. Say you buy $100,000 of Beyond Meat. That thing, if it's going up one time or two times, it's going to 200 grand. Then it doubles again, it's going to go to 400 grand. Then it doubles again, it's going to go to 800 grand. Then one more time, 1.6. And then the last time, which is the final double, you're at 3.2 mil off of one stock that you threw 100 grand in. I constantly think about this with Penn when it was at 375 in the pandemic. And this is where like it's sometimes good to look at, like you brought up Amazon, saying how at one point Amazon was where the mushroom company is, maybe not exactly to that point, but bottom line is if you believe in a company and you kind of start to play those games with yourself and look at the compounding growth of
it's phenomenal. That's everything. Like Leon always says, close your eyes and check in 10 years.
Yeah, well, that's why I've completely separated my buy and holds from like stocks that I trade in. Don't get me wrong, like maybe I'll trade in and out of a Microsoft, but those shares that I originally bought, I've made a decision. I'm just not ever selling any of the companies that I own, unless, don't get me wrong, there's like major fundamental changes in some of these stocks. But like when I look at my portfolio and I like look at the big picture, and I'm looking at like a Pinterest at like 44, or like a Snap at 26, or even Amazon at 3,300. That's not the best example because they're already so big. I'm trying to sit back and be like, well, at some point, is Snap maybe going to be like a $250 stock? And sure, I could take profits at 33 and 38 and 42, or I could, lock away the stock, throw away the key, and check back in 20 years from now. And again, I'm not specifically talking about Snap, but more so companies that are dominating the world. If you have conviction that they're not going anywhere, the gains that they could generate if you just put them in your portfolio and walk away.
Yeah. You're in good shape.
It's pretty. Yeah, like it doesn't take much to kind of get that base going where you're in great shape.
Not at all. You got to just be patient too, and have a strategy where, like you said, there's certain stocks you're getting in and out of. Certain are anchors, like our grandpa said early on with the 10 stock anchors. I thought it was a pretty good strategy.
Yeah. Ken Rolland, one of the original stock picking beasts. I'll never forget when I was sitting at his desk in his old house in Arizona, and he had that like featured article that was written about him in the New York Times. It was pretty awesome. That guy clearly did some.
Kenny, we'll be seeing him next month.
So
hey, Ken.
Quick touch on the futures here. It looks like the Dow's set to open about 190, which is down from 260, which is where it was when we first started talking on here. And S&P looks like it's going to open up about 21 points, which is like 0.62%. And tech looks like it's going to open up about 100 points, which is like 0.9%. All in all, looking like a pretty strong day. But get ready for a tweet.
Buckle up.
That could change everything. So talk to you later.